In this video, we're going to expand our Faces application to include a managed bean. A managed bean is a Java object that fulfills the Java Bean specification. It represents a resource in the Java virtual machine, and it is usually used for getting information about its resources, whether it be statistics, application properties, or notifications of events. In Java Server Faces, the managed bean is created by a constructor with no arguments that has a set of properties and methods to perform functions for and on the component. A managed bean can be bound to any of these resources: a component value, a component instance, a converter instance, a listener instance, or a validator instance. Once bound to a resource, a managed bean performs specific types of services for that component. For instance, a bean bound to a component value might validate that data to ensure that it is of the proper format or is consistent with other data. A bean bound to a component instance might handle events created for that component, which could then determine functions like page navigation. Keeping these principles in mind, let's write a simple bean using Faces. We're going to create a bean that allows the user to specify a username and then greets them with their chosen name. For this, we're going to need 3 files: an XHTML page to contain the name submission form, an XHTML page to display the chosen name, and a Java class to contain information about the specified name, because HTML does not have the ability to store data and pass it to other pages on its own. Let's start by creating the first page. Right-click on Web Content, choose New, and then choose HTML file. I'll name this page login.xhtml and click Finish. On this page, I'm going to create a form for the username input. This can be done with the tag h:form. If you get an unknown tag error, as I've gotten here, make sure you have imported the correct file. Right now, it only has the file w3.org/1999/xhtml imported. We need to add in one extra file. So we can go to the import statement and put in xml_ins:/h equals, and then in quotes, http java.sun.com/jsf/html. Now the error should go away because it can now detect your form tag. Within the form tag, there will be 2 components, a text box and a submit button. First, we have the h:"input text tag for the text box. This tag should have an ID of input text and a value of #, curly braces, name wrapper dot name, and in curly braces. The # plus bracket syntax is used to tell Java where to store the input text. A bit later on, we're going to create the name wrapper class with name as one of its variables. The second tag is h:"command button. As before, we need an ID and value, so I'll set them both to be submit. The value of the button will be the text that displays on the button itself. The other parameter that must be set for a command button is its action, so I'll add the action equals page 2. This is going to be the name of our second XHTML page, and it tells Java where to go when you click Submit. With that, the login page is complete. Now let's create page 2. Right-click on Web Content again, go to New, HTML file, and call it page2.xhtml. If you choose a different name for this page, just make sure that it matches the name you chose for your command button in the login page. The purpose of this page is to generate a welcome message that includes the username specified on the previous page. In the body, I will type in welcome, then the tag h:"output text, and I can close this tag. Make sure that you import the correct website here as well. The output text tag tells Java to display dynamic text in this location based off of some specification. To indicate what text to display, set the ID to outText and the value to # and then name wrapper.name again. As before, we're using the pound sign and bracket syntax to refer to a class variable. Finally, we need to create the Java class name wrapper. This will actually appear in the source folder, so go ahead and go to Java Resources and Source, then right-click and choose New, and then Class. The package name can be whatever you want. I'll just call it username. The class name, though, must be name wrapper because that's the class that we've been referring to in the other two files. Within the name wrapper class, we need to define our variable, which we call name, and then provide getter and setter methods so that it can be accessed by the other HTML files. Before we do that, though, we need to tell Java that this is a managed bean class. So we add the annotation @managedBean in front of the class name, and then import the relevant file. Note that even though you have two import options here, the correct one is the javax.faces.bean import. The second annotation we need is a little bit subtler. Because we are using multiple web pages and navigating from one to another, we need the @sessionScoped annotation to let Java know that the variable should persist across multiple pages. The actual code for this class is pretty simple, but it is absolutely vital that it be defined correctly because this is going to be accessed from HTML methods and they are looking for very specific syntax. In order for the getter and setter methods to be recognized by the XHTML tags, they must be defined in a very specific format. First, we define private string name. For the getter method, the syntax will be public string getName, and the code should return the name variable. For the setter method, the syntax is public void setName with string name as an input, and the code is this.name equals name. Fortunately, we don't have to type this in all by ourselves because you can just hover over the name and create getter and setter for the name. This will automatically generate the two methods and ensure that they have the correct formatting. With all three classes complete, we can now test the managed bean. Right-click on the login.xhtml page and choose Run As and then Run on Server. As it runs, it should display something like this: a text box with a submit button. Type in your name and click Submit, and it should say Welcome followed by your name. With that, we now have a functional managed bean.